Time to bust out your Ugg boots, sweater vests, and big-ass scarves because it's fall, baby! Yes! Leaves are falling. Scarecrows are scarecrowing. There's something always depressing in the air, and I freaking love it. And if there's anything you know about us bitches, we be loving fall. And once that first leaf hits the ground, it's time to haul your ass over to your local Starbucks and pick up a pumpkin spice latte. Don't lie, I know you're doing that right now. Yeah, it's PSL season, baby. I mean, in 2022 alone, Starbucks sold 22 million pumpkin spice lattes. They've really become part of the culture, especially when it comes to the holidays. They're everywhere. But when I did a little snooping around into this $113 billion company, I came across child labor rights violations, the deaths of tens of thousands of orangutans, and the subject of quite a bit of controversy. Hi friends, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. My name is Bailey Sarian, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast, Dark History. Hi. Here we believe history does not have to be boring. I mean, yes, it might be tragic, it might be happy, rarely, but either way, it's our dark history. So all you have to do is sit back, relax, and let's talk about that hot, juicy history gas. Okay, so today, can you tell by, sorry, Paul, I forgot your name. Can you tell from Paul and Joan over here what we're talking about? Starbucks. I know what you're thinking. Bailey, don't take my Starbucks away from me. It's all I have. You're like, I don't care if my pumpkin spice latte doesn't have real pumpkin in it. And girl, I get it. I mean, I don't bite into a strawberry starburst and think, this shit better have real strawberry in it. I mean, we know what we're getting into. But when I was snooping around into Starbucks, I was shooketh by the amount of stuff they get away with. I mean, they're on every corner, which is crazy because you would think of all the scandals that I'm going to tell you about. At least one would have shut them down. But no, Starbucks is always thriving and we're addicted. Years ago, one of my subscribers had recommended this drink to me and I've never looked back. I get the Venti iced green tea matcha with 2 pumps vanilla, 2 pumps chai. You're welcome. Try it. It tastes just like cereal milk. It's so good. But now, I'm not sure if it's worth it. But before I get right into Starbucks, I think it's important for us to know a little bit more about coffee, right? I mean, it is coffee. And because we're talking about Starbucks specifically, I'm not gonna get too into the any ancient history. What is important to know is that for a long time, coffee, just like spices, was not for everyone. It was only for the elite. Ooh, fancy. No coffee for you, peasant. And that's how it was in the United States too. I mean, that is until the Industrial Revolution, which happened from 1760 to 1840. This was essentially a time when factories started to take over manufacturing and they were making everything. There was a big influx of people moving to the cities for factory jobs. People left, their country living behind. And the nice thing about these factories in America is that they were making things way more efficiently. I mean, tons of important technology we still use today was invented, like the telephone and the light bulb. And foods that had once only been for the elite were now cheaper to produce, which meant that the everyday person was able to buy it. For example, like coffee. During this time, 2 big coffee companies emerged, and you're probably familiar with them. One of them is Folgers. Yeah, Folgers, okay. And then the second one is Maxwell House. Yeah, feed me, Seymour. Come on, Maxwell House. So these 2 companies became the coffee brands that everyone could afford. It was packaged in a factory and sold in grocery stores. And suddenly, boof, coffee was for the people. Rome wasn't built in a day, and the shift of coffee going from bougie to basic didn't happen overnight. It took a really long time. Coffee historians think that between 1950 and 1970 is what coffee experts call the first wave of coffee in America. And we were hooked. Honestly, we were hooked. Now, by this point, coffee was everywhere. It was in diners, it was in the home, and it was making all types of people just shit themselves and hit their deadlines. So around the 1970s, people shifted from thinking of coffee as an afterthought like something you would have with your pie. And now people were going to actual like coffee shops for coffee specifically. Like this was mind-blowing. It made purchasing coffee feel almost special and kind of luxurious. Before that, coffee was just something you would get in a diner or something to drink to keep you awake. And now it was becoming a cultural movement. Well, time goes by, and in the 80s, decaf comes into play, blah, blah, blah. Nobody really cared. But then when the 90s came, it had a big impact on coffee because there were popular television programs like Friends and Seinfeld. And this actually influenced people to start wanting to hang out at like coffee shops. And they did. I mean, it was cool. It was just like the characters on their favorite show. And this was because coffee shops were a perfect example of what people today call a third place. I know, I was like, what? I don't get it. What is that? It's not your home. It's not your work. It's the third place, neutral territory, somewhere where friends can hang out. Then people's expectations shifted a bit and people started to want higher quality and better tasting coffee. And instead of just like milk and sugar in their coffee, the people demanded more choice in how their coffee was made. Like they want lattes, frappuccinos, shaken espressos. Consumers wanted their coffee to be special, just like them. Essentially, everyone started to kind of think of themselves as like some, coffee snob. And then remember in the 2000s, the early 2000s, when all those celebrities were out and about in their bedazzled Uggs, juicy couture velour jumpsuit, holding those big, fancy coffee cups. Remember? Come on. There were like paparazzi pictures of Britney in Paris on their cell phones, giant sunglasses, just slurping on a Frappuccino with extra whip. And as a teenager, I was like, I don't know what they're drinking, but I want that. That's so cool. Eventually, America hit the information age. And this was like the start of mass media, marketing, and the internet. People just in general had access to more information. And the public started to get curious about where their coffee came from. They didn't want to buy chain store coffee anymore. It was too basic. Now people want to support small shops where their beans were sourced ethically and organically. So we got the coffee snobs asking about like where their coffee beans come from. And then we have the average Joes who's just, mixing up his instant Folgers with Coffee Mate. Simple life, just kind of a big divide. And that brings us into a new age of coffee, which was led by one of the new giants in coffee culture, talking about Starbucks. Oh, Starbucks, my bad. This week's episode of Dark History is sponsored by Apostrophe. Look, we've all been there, whether it's prom or your sister's wedding or, the first day of work, an important meeting. Acne seems to pop up at the worst times, right? And it's hard to feel confident when all you can think about is this planet on your forehead and you keep fingering it. I get it. And Apostrophe, they get it too. Apostrophe, if you don't know, is an online platform that connects you with an expert dermatology team to get customized acne treatment for your unique skin. Through Apostrophe, you can get access to oral and topical medications that use clinically proven ingredients to help clear acne. All you have to do is just fill out a simple online consultation about your skin concerns and like what your goals are. Then you snap a few selfies and an expert dermatologist will create your initial treatment plan. And Apostrophe, they offer access to prescription treatments for all types of acne, from hormonal acne to facial acne and even back, chest, and butt acne. Even after I cleared up a breakout, my acne would sometimes leave behind dark spots. And I told Apostrophe like I wanted help fading the new dark spot I got, thank you, and help controlling any future breakouts. And they paired me with a board-certified dermatologist who helped create a plan for me and my goals. It was super easy to sign up, and they shipped the medication right to my door. I didn't even have to leave my house. I'm turning into a little troll just locked up in her house. So no need to go to the doctor's office or even the pharmacy at all. Thanks, Apostrophe. Right now, we have a special deal for our audience. You can get your first visit for only $5 at apostrophe.com/darkhistory when you use our code DARKHISTORY. That's a savings of $15. Hello. This code is only available to our listeners. And to get started, just go to apostrophe.com/darkhistory and then click get started. Then use our code DARKHISTORY at sign up and you'll get your first visit for only $5. A big thank you to Apostrophe for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get back to today's story. Two tails, a great set of titties, and a fantastic bush. No, I'm not talking about me. I'm actually talking about the original Starbucks logo, but I'm flattered. Thank you. Once upon a time, on March 30th, 1971, the very first Starbucks opened up. Three friends named Jerry Baldwin, Zeb Siegel, and Gordon Bowker were all obsessed with coffee. I guess they had met at the University of San Francisco, and it was there that they had learned the art of coffee roasting. And the man they gained this knowledge from was a guy named Alfred Peet. Alfred Peet was actually the founder of another coffee company called Peet's Coffee. I know. I've actually never had Peet's, but I see it all the time. It's kind of pricey. So these guys, these three amigos, had learned everything under Mr. Peet himself. And then what did they do? Jerry, Zev, and Gordon went off and founded Starbucks. Jerry, Zev, and Gordon just loved a nautical theme. I know. So they wanted their new coffee shop to have a nautical name, something that would make you think about adventure. The early days of coffee being traded in faraway lands. I guess Gordon initially suggested that the name be Pequod, after the name of the ship in the novel Moby Dick. Well, Gordon was overruled, but they refused to give up on their nautical theme. And guess what the name of the Pequod's first mate was? Starbuck. Yes, so they added an S. Starbucks. Great. And the logo wasn't green like the one we've come to know. Originally, it was brown and featured a more anatomically correct mermaid. Starbucks started out as a place where you could buy some quality coffee beans and then you could take them home and brew them yourself. At their first location in Seattle, there wasn't even a place to sit down. You just come in, you get your beans, and you get the fuck out. Now, in comes a man named Howard Schultz. Now, this guy in the 70s, he decided to head on down to the original Starbucks and check it out for himself because he sees that they're real busy and stuff and he wants to know what's going on. He's curious. And I guess he was really impressed. He liked what he saw, and in 1982, he joined Starbucks as the director of marketing. And Howard, he had a vision. Okay, after going on a trip to Milan, Italy, he noticed that the coffee shops there kind of gave the community that third place hangout vibe that I mentioned, a place in between home and work. And Howard wondered, why doesn't this exist in the US? So he brings it to the people at Starbucks and he's like, hey, why don't we do this? But this idea was a little too much for the Starbucks founders, I guess. I mean, they could not compute having a coffee shop where people could sit. What? Smooth jazz? They did not believe that this would ever work. Howard couldn't convince them of this outrageous concept for their Seattle coffee bars. So in 1985, he ends up leaving the company. The next year, he opened up his own little coffee bar, but still, he always had Starbucks in the back of his mind. In 1987, Howard took his coffee shop and made it public. So he got a bunch of money from investors. And with all this new money, he ends up buying Starbucks. At this point, Starbucks already was doing well, and he wanted it because then he would get the name. He just kind of feels petty as shit, He's just watch what I can do with Starbucks. Now, at the time, Starbucks was growing, but it was at a slower rate. When Howard bought it, there was only about 20 locations, and in just a few years, they went from 20 locations to over 100. And that's not all. Starbucks had a plan to go even bigger. In 1992, Starbucks went public, meaning Howard could now open up Starbucks to investors, which was a genius move because the 90s was when Starbucks went from cute coffee shop with a mermaid to a neighborhood staple. By the year 2000, there were over 2,500 locations. Wow, I know. Pretty soon, it became a huge corporation that everyone wanted to be a part of. People bought, Starbucks stocks. They bought their coffee. It made it into movies like You've Got Mail. You know that. You watched it the other day, don't lie. And honestly, it was part of the culture now, not just a coffee shop. Then in 1994, Starbucks even created a solution for those who wanted the latte, but maybe didn't want to interact with people. So they opened up a drive-through window. So yes, maybe it didn't look exactly like how Howard imagined, but he did succeed in bringing coffee shop culture to the masses. And for the next decade, Howard and Starbucks seemed unstoppable. They were opening an average of 2 new stores every day until 2007. Wow. But it wasn't necessarily like what Howard had in mind for his company. Again, he wanted like that cozy little cafe, like the ones in Italy. And Starbucks was becoming the Walmart of coffee shops. The bigger it got, the less charming and cozy it became. And Starbucks had become a replacement for the office. People were coming to Starbucks with their laptops, not to socialize, but to work, to send emails, to like pretend to type. And yeah, I think that was frustrating to Howard, but he got over it. He cried in his money because Starbucks was a huge hit and thousands of stores continue to open up all across the country. And there you go. That's the story of how one little trip to Milan inspired a cultural coffee movement that shaped how we enjoy our coffee today. The end. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. Just kidding. We are now in a new era of coffee where consumers have gotten a little more curious about what exactly is in their coffee. I'm talking about the actual ingredients, right? Isn't it just coffee? Isn't that the ingredient? No. I know. Coffee, dairy, sugar. Those are the foundations of most coffee drinks. Pretty simple, straightforward. What could possibly be scandalous about that? Have you heard of a little something called recombinant bovine growth hormone, aka RBGH? I've seen it, but I was like, no, what the hell's that? Well, let me tell you. RBGH is a synthetic hormone that was approved by the FDA in 1993. But funny enough, it's actually banned in the European Union and Canada due to potential harm it could have on the body. And then get this. I found out that the leading producer of RBGH is Monsanto. And I think that says enough, right? Now, ain't that some shit? So I'm telling you this because up until 2008, Starbucks was using milk produced with RBGH. It was found to probably not cause any harm to humans who ingested it, but it did make cows very sick. Yeah, that didn't stop Starbucks from continuing to use the milk from those sick cows. They seemed to be aware of the potential issues with RBGH as early as the year 2000 because they claimed that they were going to go RBGH free, but then nothing happened for years. And then finally, when they did stop using it in 2008, it was most likely because of the public pressure. Or maybe they were just trying to distance themselves from the sick cows controversy. But Starbucks started offering dairy alternatives, to make them happy, like soy milk. Remember when soy milk was huge? It was so big. It was out of control. Everyone was like, fucking soy milk. And then also coconut milk. Starbucks said, don't worry, I got you. You don't want that sick cow milk? Well, you could have coconut milk. Coconut milk just tastes like jizz. Real talk. Sorry, said it. But if you like it, that's fine. Do your thing, girl. Or boy. You don't have to drink regular cow milk. You got options now. But honestly, the alternative milks, they really aren't any better. Most of them are just sugar water. And that's why I like them. When you walk into a Starbucks, you kind of know, you're gonna leave with a lot of sugar, okay? A Starbucks venti mocha cookie crumble frappuccino, bitch, that name, it has 590 calories in it. Did you know this? Guess what? Because McDonald's, I did some research. McDonald's Big Mac has 563 calories. I know, not that bad. I'll take the Big Mac. Even a grande iced pumpkin spice latte is almost 400 calories. What's in it? I don't fucking know. Now you might be thinking, Bailey, we get it. We're not going to Starbucks for healthy food. And yeah, great. I hope you have a great day. But if we're moving away from the ingredients, Starbucks, they have many controversies that don't have anything to do with your actual lattes. It's time to get back into a fall routine. And if you need a partner in meal planning, look, HelloFresh is here to help. HelloFresh handles all of the meal planning and shopping to deliver everything you need for a tasty homemade meal. Oh yeah, they do the hard part for you and you still get to take all the credit. You're like, yeah, I made it. I did that from my mind. But really you're like, thanks HelloFresh. And with a new season comes new recipes. And like HelloFresh has over 40 recipes to choose from every week. And more than 100 add-on items to stock your pantry with essentials and snacks. I love a snack. And I checked for you. They have plenty of options for soup season. Where my soupies at? Whoop, whoop. HelloFresh makes any dietary restrictions easy. Like whether you're a vegetarian, maybe you're looking for something that's protein smart, or you just need something that's quick and on the table in less than 30 minutes or less. My favorite part of HelloFresh is knowing that I'm getting the best produce shipped from the farm directly to my door in just 7 days. And like sometimes I would get home from the grocery store and find out that some of the produce I picked just like wasn't fresh, kind of looked like garbage, like oops. And then I would end up not using it or just throwing it out. So for me with HelloFresh, it's like, tell me what to eat. Just tell me what to eat and HelloFresh does it for me. And it's the best because it's really good. If this sounds like something you're like, hey, I should try, go to hellofresh.com/50darkhistory and use code 50darkhistory for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's hellofresh.com/50darkhistory and use 50 Dark History for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. In 2013, Starbucks was called out by consumers for their use of palm oil in their baked goods. This is bad because harvesting palm oil has led to the destruction of entire rainforests in countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. I'm here to tell you that rainforests, they're actually extremely important. They are often referred to as, quote, the lungs of the planet because they release oxygen so we can survive. So, kind of important. Plus, experts believe that around half of the 2 countries' natural forests have been destroyed and replaced with palm oil plantations. Because of this, it has led to the deaths of over 50,000 orangutans. You know, those orange monkeys? Those forests are their homes. They were their homes. And because of this palm oil use, orangutans are currently facing extinction. First the cows and now the orangutans. Damn it, Starbucks, what the fuck are you doing? And look, to be honest, like Starbucks wasn't the only one that got called out. Companies like our old friend Nestle, Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, they've all been called out for their use of palm oil as well. But this episode is about Starbucks, and it took them a long time to stop using palm oil. So they're the ones that we're calling out right now, okay? And then, so palm oil, not great. I want to do a whole episode of Dark History about palm oil. Let me know down below. Thank you. Now, apart from all of that, there's also the cups. Let's talk about the cups. I didn't know cups could cause such a big problem, but they are a problem. In 2008, it was revealed that Starbucks was using a whopping 4 billion cups a year, which means that 1.6 million trees per year are being cut down and destroyed to make these stupid-ass cups. The company was exposed after an investigation revealed that their recyclable cups were actually not recyclable at all. On the Starbucks cups, they had like a little recycling symbol, on the cup. So you would know you could recycle the cup, right? And you could feel good, a little bit better about the trees and I'm gonna recycle the cup. But the lie detector test determined that was a lie. You actually could not recycle their cups because they were using a chemical on the cup itself so the coffee could stay hot. And I guess like the chemical can't be removed easily from the cups, so it makes it, you can't recycle it. To be fair, technically, there is one machine that can break down these cups for recycling, but it's really expensive and no one does it. So, okay. Back in 2008, Starbucks pledged to have a fully recyclable cup by 2015 and promised to sell at least 25% of their drinks in reusable cups. But to date, Starbucks still hasn't developed that magical cup that can be recycled anywhere. Yeah, it's 2023, bitches. What the fuck happened, Starbucks? And then years later, Starbucks said by the end of 2023, their cups will be recyclable. LOL. Honestly, it doesn't look like that's even happening at all. But like, okay, this one sat with me because I was like, it's so bizarre. It's just like, what a weird lie, right? Starbucks? Now, I have a personal question for you. Are you a size queen? If you answered yes, you and Starbucks might have some beef. Because in 2016, Starbucks was sued by 2 customers who claimed that Starbucks were being greedy bridge trolls and underfilling their lattes by 25%. These customers said like the company had a systematic conspiracy to underfill its drinks in order to save millions of dollars. The case did eventually get thrown out, but still, we all know what they be doing over there, okay? You get a grande drink, have 4 sips of it, and you realize, oh yeah, I just spent $7 on a cup of ice. Yeah. Starbucks has also been sued for using too much ice in their drinks. One lawsuit filed in Chicago claimed that Starbucks instructed baristas to fill drinks with much more ice than liquid. What was the reason? The alleged reason? Money, of course. Don't be silly. But if you know Starbucks, you know they're always having some kind of marketing drama. In 2015, America was swept up in a media storm after the communities of color experienced racial discrimination and violence and murder. I mean, let's be honest, they always have. But the media, for once, was highlighting the social justice movements created in response to the chaos that was happening. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. You guys remember? Great. There's a lot of tension being highlighted in the media. And of course, companies, they started doing lots of cringy things to try and seem like they were on the right side of history. And Starbucks was one of those companies. They came up with this stupid ass idea. Some guys at top were like, hey, our holiday cups always get attention. Why not use those? So they launched a week-long campaign called Race Together. Oh yeah, just wait. Starbucks told their employees to write the hashtag Race Together on people's cups. And the idea was that this was going to create a safe space to talk about race. So I guess baristas were supposed to be like, I've got enough extra hot latte for Dan. Dan, listen, Dan, can I interest you in a conversation about racial tension while I got you here? The Race Together campaign got 2.5 billion social media reactions online in less than like 48 hours. And most of it, negative. People are just as confused as we are right now. The magazine Business Insider called it Starbucks' most embarrassing moment in history. That sucks. I mean, yeah, that was really stupid. Whose idea was that? That was dumb as shit. Well, it gets worse. Just a few years after Starbucks tried to get you to talk about race by writing a hashtag on your to-go cup, 2 Black men were arrested for not making a purchase at a Philadelphia Starbucks. They were waiting at the Starbucks because they were supposed to have a business meeting there, and they're like waiting for the guy to come, right? So I guess the Starbucks manager was pissed that the men were waiting, and they were like waiting to order until their colleague arrived. The 2 men were asked to leave, but they refused. So the manager decided to call the police, saying that these men were trespassing. Jesus. Even after their business associate did turn up, the officers still ended up arresting the 2 men. And these men were never charged with anything because they didn't do anything wrong. But it was like everywhere. It was all over the media. It was all over the news. People were outraged. Like, what the fuck? Remember Howard Schultz? He issued a public apology saying that he was embarrassed and ashamed. Starbucks released an official statement apologizing to the 2 men who had been arrested, stating, quote, Starbucks stands firmly against discrimination or racial profiling, end quote. So a few weeks after the incident, thousands of Starbucks, they had closed their stores to do a racial bias training. And I don't know, apparently, according to Starbucks employees, the training was not very helpful and it was actually quite cringy. Some say, well, at least they tried to do something, but I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right move, you guys. And look, I mean, this is all horrible, but let's be real. After a few months, people tend to kind of forget about these things and the media cycle moves on. And hello, Starbucks is everywhere. I mean, it's delicious, it's convenient, and you know exactly what you're gonna get. And that's something they pride themselves on. Another thing that Starbucks really prides itself on, being fair trade. Today's episode of Dark History is brought to you by Way, your new secret to great hair. Okay, I was thinking about this the other day and what does living your way mean to you? We're constantly being told what we need and want, whether it's the freaking ad algorithm or our social media feeds. So it's how do you know you live in a way that's authentic to you? Way wants you to say yes to what makes the best version of yourself. And Way gives you the confidence to live life your way with hair and body products made for effortless routines so you can look good every day. I use Way shampoo and conditioner that's made for my thin ass hair, but they make shampoo and conditioner for all hair types, whether you have thick, thin, or medium. It hydrates with shea butter and avocado oil, and hydrolyzed keratin gives my hair a protein boost. And when my hair needs a little extra support, their hair oil keeps my strands shiny and healthy, but doesn't leave it feeling greasy, and it smells really good. Okay, so it's when you walk by people, you get that. It's flick your hair and then they'll smell it. Exactly. Thank me later. So no matter what kind of hair you have, Way's hair oil will rejuvenate your hair so it's healthier, more vibrant, and it smells incredible. Live your life your way and get the fast fix for healthy looking hair. Go to TheWay, TheOuai.com, and use code DARKHISTORY for 15% off any purchase. That's TheWay, TheOuai.com, and use code DARKHISTORY. Yay! Okay, if you're like me, you're thinking to yourself, I know I've heard the phrase fair trade, and I know it has to do with being fair and trading, and maybe coffee, but I don't really know what it means literally. So don't worry, looked it up for us, okay? Fair trade essentially means that there is some kind of partnership between companies or corporations and international businesses. An example of something that is supposed to be fair trade is bananas. Do you remember season 1? We did an episode on bananas. Bitch, that shit blew my fucking mind. Big companies like Chiquita Banana will partner with a smaller international farm and purchase bananas from them. This is so that Chiquita Banana can get those bananas for cheap, and also so that the people providing the bananas have steady, solid work, and that work is supposed to be compensated with a fair price. Essentially, the whole idea behind fair trade is it's supposed to be a win-win for everybody. And it's a great idea, right? Until everyone just fucks it up. So Starbucks was aiming for this when it came to sourcing their coffee from other countries. I mean, most of us have been inside a Starbucks, and if you look around, the phrase fair trade is everywhere. I guess it's supposed to make us feel better about giving money to such a huge corporation. When you see it on the cup, you're like, oh my God. I just want to take this moment to say thank you to my mother and father for having me, and God, and I'm such a good person. Do you feel like that? Sometimes I do. I give speeches in the middle of Starbucks whenever I see something, fair trade, or I recycle. I give speeches. Thank you everyone for coming to my ceremony. But unfortunately, Starbucks, they're just they're liars. Yeah. Can I say that? Well, I just did, because they just are fucking liars. There is let me just tell you before I keep grunting and making noises. So some of Starbucks' shady practices came to light when a coffee farmer decided to speak up, on some of the bullshit that was going on. In December of 2006, an 85-year-old Ethiopian coffee farmer named Gamede Robe decided to leave his village for the very first time to expose the truth on what was really going on in the fair trade coffee industry. Gamede explained that he'd been working with an international organization called Oxfam to get Starbucks in America to sign a new agreement. And in this agreement, it would essentially say that Ethiopian coffee farmers have the right to ask for more money and more power when it comes to the coffee market, especially, when it comes to selling coffee to Starbucks. Here's an example. In America, certain coffee blends from Ethiopia can go for $26 a pound. But the farmers who harvest and sell those beans, they typically made less than $1 on pounds of these specialty bougie beans. It barely covers the cost of farming the beans. There's no profit. What's the fucking point? That's not fair trade. It's awful. So at this point in 2006, Starbucks was worth $6 billion. And if they signed this new agreement, it would give the Ethiopian coffee market $88 million more a year, which I feel like would be great, right? Okay, and I feel like if you're like in the billions, everything else is just kind of pocket change for them, right? I'm not a financial advisor, actually. I have no idea how money works, but come on. And plus, like, these are like where they're getting their coffee from. So you think you'd want to take care of the farmers who are actually getting you the beans that you're fucking selling, Starbucks. If Starbucks depends on Ethiopia to make their signature coffee, why wouldn't you sign this agreement? Isn't that what fair trade is all about, Starbucks? I'm like twitching, like, huh. Well, friends, Starbucks refused to sign the agreement. They actually filed a bunch of legal paperwork saying they didn't agree with Ethiopia's position. Like, okay, but let's be honest, it's all about power and profits, always, right? So eventually, like, the public found out and they were pissed. For years, Starbucks had been marketing itself as a socially responsible coffee company, a place where you can get a grande mochaccino guilt-free. The Ethiopian Coffee Farmer campaign decided to go grassroots with it. I mean, they wanted to bring as much attention to their cause as possible. So they worked with the Ethiopian community in the United States, even with students and with Starbucks employees. They ended up getting over 100,000 people involved, and they didn't launch a smear campaign against Starbucks or complain to the media. They just had like a simple message: honor your commitment to coffee farmers. Period. Like, how mature, right? Jeez. The story became all about how the fair trade struggle between coffee farmers and Starbucks was essentially like the story of David versus Goliath. Finally, in June of 2007, after being called out by like everybody, major media outlets for over a year and blah, 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 Starbucks gave in to the Ethiopian coffee farmers. And for a while, it was like a huge win for the industry. But then, child labor entered the chat. We can't have anything nice, can we? Jeez. In March of 2020, an investigation by a British documentary program called Channel 4's Dispatches revealed that they had been investigating 12 different coffee farms that supplied beans to Starbucks. On every single one of those farms, they found kids under the age of 13 working alongside the adults. Children as young as 8 years old were filmed working 40-hour weeks under horrible conditions. I mean, these kids, they were working in high temperatures with little to no breaks, not to mention the fact that it's just not safe for kids to be around heavy farming equipment, but what do we know? On top of that, the kids were paid depending on the weight of the beans they picked, and a day's worth of beans usually makes them less money than a Starbucks latte. And this was 2020 latte prices. When this news leaked, Starbucks publicly stated that they had a zero tolerance policy for child labor. Like, oh, wow. You know, like they just all talk. They're so annoying. They were even going to allegedly launch their own investigation. I fucking roll. And during like that original little undercover operation, they came up with a solution. Don't buy coffee from these farms. That'll teach them, you know. But at the same time, it wasn't necessarily the right move because now those people are not making money and they're not getting paid. It's kind of like a fucking lose-lose. So that investigation also exposed how much money goes to farmers versus the corporations they sell to. Let's say someone buys a cup of coffee that costs $3.17. The end. After paying for supplies, its employees, and tax, Starbucks makes at least 32 cents in profit from that single cup that you can't recycle. But the farmers, they would only be making 1 cent for each cup. Those are their beans, goddammit. And it's not just an international thing. Starbucks has seen thousands of stores stand up for themselves by asking for fairer pay and better working conditions. Unionize, baby! This week's episode, and a little less headache shipping this holiday season, is brought to you by ShipStation. It's the calm before the holiday storm, and if you're a small business owner, you know what a hassle getting all of those orders out can be. But you can prepare now just by using ShipStation. Whether you're shipping from your house or a warehouse, ShipStation can help increase your profitability and efficiency, and grows with you. Save time with automating your shipping and returns in the ShipStation dashboard, and save money with carrier discounts. Because those shipping costs, they stack up really fast during the holiday rush. You can manage orders, print labels, optimize every shipment, and automate delivery notifications all in one location, okay? And if there's a mistake, you can quickly and easily update crucial information to reduce any type of errors and keep people, your customers, happy. Set your business up for holiday season success with ShipStation. Go to ShipStation.com and use code DARKHISTORY today and sign up for your free 60-day trial. That's ShipStation.com, code DARKHISTORY. But it hasn't been easy. Starbucks has allegedly been cock-blocking unions from forming because if they have to pay the workers a better wage, just like with the coffee farmers, that cuts into their profits. I need another yacht. Workers who support unionizing claim that Starbucks has been punishing them by cutting their hours or making their schedule unpredictable. So they're just being total assholes. Just a dick move. And Starbucks isn't the only big coffee company out there. We know this. But between orangutan deaths and child labor scandals, I get why people would want to avoid them. I understand now. I get you. I see you. But other big coffee companies like Nespresso, they also buy coffee from some of the same farms that Starbucks does. And fair is fair. They should be held accountable too. Damn, is there anywhere safe to get a cup of coffee? Seriously, Okay, so after I did a little Googling and goggling and research and all that, I found one big coffee company that made it to a couple of clean company lists I had found online. Peet's Coffee and Tea, as in Alfred Peet's, who taught the Starbucks founders the art of roasting. Well, it turns out that Peet's was actually acquired by Jab Holdings, which is a German mega company. They own pretty much all things coffee. From Stumptown to Keurig to Krispy Kreme. I know it's not coffee, but just go with me. They own everything, okay? Listen, I wanted to see how this Jab company compared to Starbucks. And what's the first thing that came up when I was digging into this company? It's not funny, but it was shocking. Seriously, the second I typed into Google, Jab Holdings, Nazi came up. And I was like, oh God. The company was started by the Raymond family, who donated to Hitler during his reign of terror. Yeah, the Raymonds even used Nazi-sanctioned slave labor, which made them a huge profit during World War II. And according to David Hundian, a journalist for CNN, Jab, quote, owes its entire fortune to Nazism. Where do we go from here? I don't know. But I decided, you know what, fuck coffee. I'm not drinking it anymore. And you can meet me in the tea aisle, which we should do a dark history on Lipton. Don't even get me started. Nothing's safe. We're all gonna die. Where am I? Who's the president? Wouldn't it be nice to just have a better option? A place where you could go just get a cup of coffee and everything was normal and fine and you didn't have to worry about anyone being shady and awful. Wouldn't that be cool? But I guess we're asking for too much. You know what? If you have a local coffee shop in your neighborhood that has real, genuine, fair trade coffee, or just all around good people, you drop their name below. Tell me where it's at. Just let's give them some love. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Sorry for ruining Starbucks. They honestly suck ass. That's just my personal opinion. And I hope they go down in flames. Hey, remember, don't be afraid to ask questions, to be curious, because that's how you get the whole story and answers and information. And you deserve that. Don't forget to join me over on my YouTube, where you can actually watch these episodes on Thursday after the podcast airs. And while you're there, you can also catch my murder, mystery, and makeup. I'd love to hear your guys' reactions to today's story. Actually, no. I feel like everyone's going to be throwing their fraps at me. Please don't. Please, sir. But I'd love to hear your guys' reactions to today's story. So make sure to use the hashtag #DarkHistory over on social media so I can follow along and see what you're saying. Let's read some comments. It's my favorite part. Stars in Alignment 9 said, I feel called out when Bailey says, quote, kind of like your dad, just gone, end quote. Sorry. Sky Dowling 1894 left a comment on our Childhood Stories episode from season 2 saying, quote, I can't believe she didn't talk about Alice in Wonderland. It has such an interesting backstory, and I'd love to see a Disney Part 2. Some other ones with dark histories are Hansel and Gretel, Sleeping Beauty, and Pinocchio. Okay, you guys keep asking about this episode. I see you, I'm hearing you, and I think we should do a part 2. Should we do a part 2? I want to know what's going on with Pinocchio. That was really? Dark History is an Audio Boom original. This podcast is executive produced by Bailey Sarian, hi, Junia McNeely from 3 Arts, Kevin Grush, and Matt Enlow from Maiden Network. A big thank you to our writers, Joey Scavuzzo, Katie Burris, Allison Philobos, and me, Bailey Sarian. Production lead, Brian Jaggers. Research provided by Xander Elmore and the Dark History Researcher Team. Special thank you to our expert, Adam Scott Paul. And a special thanks to Ramu Sar. And I'm your host, Bailey Sarian. I hope you have a good rest of your week. You make good choices. And I'll be talking to you later. Goodbye.